Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. Let me introduce my group. We are Group 6, with member Nisrina, Fathin, Amira, Dwi Nofiyanti, and Syaif, Alwan, Sugiharto. On this occasion, we will present the result of the discussion on the topic of purification. Next, lab report content. The topic of the practicum reports, or we call usually is lab report, which is purification. And here is the content of our lab report. 1. Title. 2. Purpose. 3. Background or basic theory. 4. Materials. 5. Procedures. 6. Data or results. 7. Analysis. 8. Conclusion. And the last is reference. And then purpose. In this lab report, we have 4 purpose, which first purpose is for purifying naphthalene by means of evaporation and steam crystallization. And the second is understand on and observe the sublimation process. And third, understand and observe the process of distillation. And the last is separates and purifies in mixture of liquids based on difference in boiling point.
Hello all, I'm Nisrina Fathin and I'm going to continue the presentation to the background section. So in this experiment of purification was carried out by 2 methods. There are sublimation and distillation. And I'll go first with the sublimation. So sublimation is a method of separating substances in which certain substances, when heated, directly change from solid to vapor without passing through the liquid phase, which is then cooled back into solid, from Sujadi 1988. Sublimation takes time to loft the pure substance to let the impurities out so that they become vapor or gases. The requirement for the separation of the mixture by sublimation is that mixed particles must have a large difference in boiling point so that they can produce a steam with a high level of purity from Mayo 2011. So next is distillation. Distillation is a method of separation and purification of liquid substances due to differences in the level of volatility or the ease with which a substance evaporates at a certain temperature and pressure, which is based on the differences in boiling points between 2 or more components in a mixture, from Sugiharto 2010. Distillation is a separation process that is very important in various chemical industry. Distillation works to separate a mixture based on differences in boiling point, and distillation is always used to separate petroleum into its fraction and separating a product from its impurity, and also is indispensable in the pharmaceutical industry, from Murad 2012. So next is going to be explained by my friend.
Hello, my name is Syaif Alwan Sugiharto. I will explain the tools and materials that will be used in the purification experiment. The tools and materials we need in this experiment include Erlenmeyer flask, 100 milliliters, 1 item, corks, 1 item, connecting pipe, 1 item, test tube, 1 item, ring stand, 2 item, clamps holder, 2 item, 4-finger clamp, 2 item, distillation flask, 1 item, Libby condenser, 1 item, thermometer, 1 item, boiling stone, 1 item, spoon, 1 item, tea water, 100 milliliters, evaporating dish, 1 item, funnel, 1 item, wire gauze, 1 item, tripod, 1 item, lab burner, 1 item, HVS paper, 1 item, cotton, just enough, and the dirty camper, 1 teaspoon.
In this section is procedure. So as I mentioned before, the purification in this experiment have two different methods. There are sublimation and distillation. So it has two different procedures too. And I'll go first with the sublimation. So first, you have to put 1 teaspoon of camphor in the evaporating dish. Cover the evaporating dish with the paper that has been punched by the needle, so it has a small holes on the paper. So a small holes in the paper is made to allow the gaseous naphthalene to pass into the funnel. And the second, you have to place the funnel upside down on the evaporating dish that has been covered with the paper and cover the end of the funnel with a little cotton. So the funnel is placed upside down because the wall on the white side of the funnel will be used as a place of the crystallized naphthalene. And the end of the funnel is clogged with the cotton to prevent the gaseous naphthalene leaving out of the system. So we will make sure that the gaseous naphthalene is still in the system. And the third step is you have to take the tripod, place the wire gauze on it, and the Bunsen burner under the tripod. Then place the evaporating dish with the side of the funnel that have been arranged. Next is heat the evaporating dish over low heat and watch the vapor rise through the holes in the paper and form crystal in the funnel. And the last thing you have to do is observe the naphthalene crystal produced using a magnifying glass. Okay, the second subtitle is simple distillation. First, you have to put 25 milliliters of tea into a 100 milliliters Erlenmeyer flask, and then you have to attach the Erlenmeyer flask to the clamp that has been attached to the ring stand, and then arrange the Erlenmeyer flask with the connecting tube and the cork, then connect it to the Liebig condenser. And then you have to connect the thermometer through the hole in the cork, and then connect the adapter to the clamp that is attached to the ring stand so that the adapter stays in a place and does not fall off. And you have to connect the adapter to the condenser firmly. The adapter is located at the lower end of the condenser. Next is place the Bunsen burner, tripod, and wire gauze set under the Erlenmeyer flask, or you can also use a heating mantle with the lab check to adjust the height of Erlenmeyer flask. And then you have to place the graduated cylinder under the adapter. Adjust the position of the graduated cylinder to the height of the adapter, then connect it with the connector. The ninth step is heat the Erlenmeyer flask until the tea is boiling and watch what will happen. And then the 10th step is you have to collect the liquid dripping from the Liebig condenser using a graduated cylinder and stop heating after about 1 milliliters of distillate has been collected. And then the last thing you have to do is observe the color of the distillate, and you have to also observe the initial temperature of the liquid being distilled, the temperature of the first drop of distillate, and the constant temperature.
I will explain the result obtained in the experiment of naphthalene sublimation. The result obtained in the experiment of naphthalene sublimation were seen from the changes in shape and color changes that occurred in naphthalene. The form before the experiment began was in the form of a powder, and after experiment formed crystal of naphthalene with a little sparkle. Then the color change that occurs, namely, the color before is white color, but after the experiment, it changes to colorless or transparent. And the result of experiment of simple distillation, the result obtained in simple distillation experiment are seen from changes in condition before and after distillation is carried out. Before distillation, the liquid still smells of tea with a dark brown color with the resulting temperature of 32 degrees Celsius. After distillation is carried out, the color of the liquid changes to colorless with the temperature produced by the first drop of the distillate of the distillate of 96 degree Celsius, and the volume of the distillate produced is 1 milliliter, and but the distillate slightly smelling of tea.
Yes, and then next is analysis. I will present analysis from the topic sublimation of naphthalene. In this experiment, purification of naphthalene was carried out by the sublimation process. Naphthalene or camphor is used because it is easy to isolate because it sublimes from the gas as a colorless crystalline solid with a melting point of 80 degrees Celsius. In other words, naphthalene is a material that sublimes easily. Naphthalene has a molecular structure consisting of two benzene rings joined in specific positions. This experiment is carried out by refining the naphthalene first so that the surface area of the naphthalene is wider, so that the reaction will take place quickly and facilitate the sublimation process. As much as 1 tablespoon of dirty naphthalene that has been crushed is put inside the evaporating dish, then the evaporating dish is covered with paper that has been perforated in the area covered by the mouth of the funnel. Then the paper with the hole was put in the inverted funnel on top and at the end of the funnel in the cotton stopper. The funnel is used for the subliming product, and the perforated paper is used for the discharge of naphthalene gas, which is produced from heating, while lime is used for clogging so that the naphthalene gas does not leak from the system. Okay, next, after heating for a few minutes, naphthalene crystals have started to occupy the walls of the funnel. The reaction of naphthalene is fast. According to the literature by Alwan, 2005, this can happen because naphthalene becomes a gas directly without going through a single liquid path. The path of naphthalene to gas is broken when camphor is heated. There is strong odor of camphor. This gas phase is then condensed into solid or crystal back in a pure state. Based on literature by Hasby, 2008, the melting point of naphthalene is 80.2 degrees Celsius. If it is below that means that the naphthalene is not really pure, and the working principle of sublimation is separated based on the difference in its melting point. Based on the literature by Shukri, 1999, the formation of naphthalene crystals in the sublimation process occurs because a solid substance in the form of a crystal. Its molecules are in an equilibrium state experiencing solubility with molecules near them. This will increase the kinetic energy large enough to resist the attractive force between the solids. Then the molecules of the molecules will escape and become the gas phase. As well as to obtain pure naphthalene, sufficient heating is needed and the effect of the substance does not evaporate. In this experiment, before the sublimation process, naphthalene was formed in the form of a white powder. After the sublimation process, pure naphthalene was produced in the form of colorless crystals. This is in accordance with the theory or literature by Alwan, 2005, that sublimation is a change in the form of a substance from solid to gas or vice versa. If the particles making up solid matter are given an increase in temperature through heating, the particles will change into gas, vice versa if the temperature is lower. Then the gas form will change to solid.
I will explain analysis of the simple distillation experiment. In this experiment, the first thing to do is install and assemble a distillation device. Then 25 milliliters of tea water was put into 100 milliliters Erlenmeyer. Erlenmeyer is connected with a connecting pipe and connected with a Liebig pipe. Then water flows into the Liebig cooler continuously, and there are no air bubbles because bubbles can affect the cooling process. Water is flowed from the bottom to flow upward, and then it is discharged because if water enters from above, the water cannot fill the contents of the Liebig cooler, so that it cannot be used to cool down steam. Water that flows from above can also be affected by the acceleration of gravity, which will cause the water to spill. The Liebig cooling function, in addition to connecting the distillation flow, also function as cooling steam that flows until the water condenses due to changes in temperature and melts back so that it flows into the round bottom flask to hold the distillate. Experiments were also carried out by observing a thermometer that was placed in a rubber stopper on a round bottom flask to collect tea water. The temperature measured is the temperature before heating, the temperature of the first drop of the distillate, and the temperature constant. After the after the thermometer is installed, then the tea water is heated and awaited until you see the first drop that drops from the adapter into the distillate container. The temperature of the first drop of distillate was measured to determine the temperature range for evaporation of the excess liquid so as to obtain pure distillation. The liquid that comes out in this temperature range must be accommodated. Then the constant temperature is measured in order to obtain pure distillate at the temperature. From this experiment, the initial temperature of tea water was 32 degrees Celsius with a dark brown color. The distillate temperature at the first drop was 96 degrees Celsius, and the constant temperature obtained was 96.5 degrees Celsius. And the temperature after the distillation process is distillate is 80.5 degrees Celsius. According to the literature in Caroline 2011, the boiling point of pure water is lower than tea water. A substance with a lower boiling point will evaporate first, and then the liquid vapor will be condensed. The Liebig cooler, which flows with water, is opposite to the direction the water vapor is formed so that the temperature will drop more easily. The volume of distillate we obtained was 1 milliliters and colorless. The difference in color before and after distillation indicate that pure water has been obtained after the distillation process. While temperature is one of the important factors in distillation, to get pure distillate, it must be heated at the temperature of the solution.
Okay, here are the conclusion of this experiment. We have 8 conclusions. First, before the sublimation process, camphor is in the form of white powder, and after the sublimation process, camphor becomes gaseous and crystallized. Second is before sublimation process, naphthalene is white in color, and after sublimation, naphthalene become colorless, and this is indicates that the pure naphthalene has been obtained. The third, at the time of sublimation, there is a strong smell of heated naphthalene, and this is show us the change in the form of naphthalene from the solid phase to the gas phase. The fourth, distillate volume obtained after the distillation process is 1 milliliters. And fifth, the temperature of the first drop of distillate is 96 degrees Celsius. The sixth, the constant temperature in the distillation process is 96.5 degrees Celsius, and the initial temperature before the distillation process is 32 degrees Celsius. Last is color change obtained before distillation are dark brown, and after distillation is colorless. So these are all the references we use to doing this experiment. And this section brings us to the end of the presentation. We hope you can understand with our explanation in this experiment. And if anyone have any questions, suggestion, criticism, or any thought about us, we would be interested to hear it from you. So let's move on to the Alkana. And lastly, we really appreciate you all that still watching us till this point of video. Thank you so much for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.